So today I'm going to share with you guys what I think is the number one mistake that we are all making when we are decluttering, and it's making the process take so much longer. But before we do, let's do a little backstory. If you're new here, my name is Becky Truda. I've been on a minimalist journey for about 5 years, give or take a little bit. So this process all really started when I had my daughter, and all of these things had accumulated around my house. We had gotten a new house. So of course we were buying all of these excess things. I was going through infertility of not being able to have a second child that I really wanted. And all of the emotions and sadness and overwhelm and anxiety that goes with things that are very difficult for our lives to handle all started crashing down on me. I felt like my whole world was falling apart. And the only thing that I felt like could make me feel better was buying things. So I bought things and bought things until my house was so full that I literally never wanted to come home. I felt so much anxiety, so much failure, so much overwhelm that I can't clean my house and that it never looks good and that I can't have anybody over. And all of these feelings started culminating until finally I watched the Minimalist documentary that was on Netflix at the time. And it really woke me up to my thinking was so wrong. That buying things, one, was not making me feel better. And that was a proven fact. I knew it made me feel better in the minute, but every time I brought something home, it would get shoved in a corner and it wasn't making me feel good more than like that 5 minutes in the checkout line. So I knew something had to change. And this mistake is something that I was making over and over again. So here it goes. The number one mistake that I believe most of us are making when we are decluttering is that we are still over consuming faster than we can declutter. And I know that sounds probably kind of obvious to a lot of you, but for me at that time, I didn't understand that I was doing that until I had a conversation with my husband that completely shook me to my core. And so I'd watched this Netflix documentary and I was like, I'm going to be a minimalist. I'm going to change my whole life. And I really tried decluttering, and I would take everything out of my closet and I would take everything out of the drawers and I'd throw it on my bed and I'd start going through it and I was watching Marie Kondo. Like, I was doing all the things. But it wasn't until I had a conversation with my husband when he said, either declutter and don't bring new things in, or just stop decluttering, because I just kept bringing things in. And he just saw really the dollar signs just going right out the door. I was buying all these new things because I thought they were more minimalist looking. And instead, he was like, just be happy with what you have, or if you're not happy, then declutter until you are. And really, it was a philosophy that I never really thought about. And honestly, it wasn't until he said that I realized I was making this massive mistake. That no matter how much I decluttered, I was never going to be in a minimalist or simple house until I stopped just over consuming constantly and trying to replace things when I got rid of them with things that I thought were better. So I want to tell you a little parable, a little story about a girl who overconsumed. So you might put your own name in this place. I can certainly put my own. But my problem was that I always thought and grew up thinking that you look at these very rich people, these people that have it all together, they have all these things, they must be so happy. And I would watch videos like Clueless, and she had this huge wardrobe of clothes. And I just kept telling myself, when I grow up, this is what I want to be. I want to have all of these clothes that I can just look through all the time. And my life is going to be so great. And everything's going to be awesome if I just have enough money to buy enough things and have all these things surrounding me. I'll be happy. Well, I can honestly say now, in retrospect, at the age of 35, that as much fun as it is to imagine these things in my head, there is this other part of me that is screaming for simplicity, that is screaming for an ease to life, that I don't need to keep up with anybody else. The marathon I am running is only against myself, so there is no one to compete with. I think all of us have this desire inside of us, have this goal inside of us that we want to accomplish, but we honestly don't think it's even possible. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are constantly comparing ourselves to other people, whether we are subconsciously doing it or not. And a lot of times that comparison creeps in and is telling us that we need to buy this thing or have this thing before we deserve to reach our goal or chase after our goal. And it's so not true. It's so much the opposite. The less that you bring into your life, the more ease it is for you to chase after those goals you might have. All right, I want to stop here real quick just to remind you that if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for more minimalist content and to join this amazing community of like-minded people who we are all just trying to help each other to declutter and live our best life. But also, if you are on this journey with us, throw a heart emoji down below to let us all know that you are decluttering and living your best minimalist life here with us. So one of the first tools that really helped me to start to change that philosophy that was so ingrained in my head that more is better and more is more, is that I started to think about when you look at AA and their philosophies on life, it very much can also creep into other things that you might have problems with. So the first rule for them is to acknowledge that you have a problem and that you don't have control over that. Not being able to control my consumption, that I was definitely a shopaholic, that I felt like every time I went in a store, I had to leave the store with something or I was unhappy. And it was very destructive to my own psychology, but also to my family and my finances. So I had to do something about it. And so one of the first things that I did was just being able to acknowledge that I had a problem. And when I had that conversation with my husband, it definitely helped me to acknowledge that I had a problem. I knew I had a problem. He saw that I had a problem. And so we were both going to be helping each other here to help me overcome these issues I was having. So the next tool that I used in order to help me overcome this shopaholic personality that was inside of me, this need to overconsume, was that I really had to start talking to myself in third person. And a lot of times I would envision myself either just picturing myself in my head, or I would picture myself as the young child who wanted to grow up and have all of these things. And I would tell myself, I am the adult, Becky. Becky, I am the adult. I am telling you, you are not buying this. You don't need this. And I would start walking through all the steps that I've talked about in many different videos about how you can talk yourself out of buying things you don't actually need. So I'll link a few of those videos down below if you're interested. And also, if you're interested, I have linked a free decluttering bingo sheet that you are welcome to use to help you in your decluttering journey. But you have to start talking to yourself in third person so that it's almost like you're having an out-of-body experience. You are counseling yourself and you are able to say, these are things that I have learned. I am not going to be this compulsive consumer anymore. I am actually able to talk myself through these issues I'm having and reason with myself like I'm talking to a friend. Now, I'm not going to say that you're never going to make mistakes, because honestly, what science tells us is that to build a new habit, a new skill, is going to take you at least 30 days. And then on top of that, to know that you aren't going to falter with that new habit you're trying to build, it really takes a pattern of doing something for 2 to 8 months before it's really going to be solid. And honestly, because I was such an overconsumer for years, my entire adult life it took me probably between that 8-month to a year time frame to really overcome the constant feeling like I was missing out on something, the feeling like I had to buy something if it was on sale, all those feelings of guilt of getting rid of stuff. I mean, the habits of my life had to severely do a 180 and completely change. And so in order to do that, yes, it took time and I made lots of mistakes. I still do to this day, thinking about things that I buy and then I'm like, I already have something that's very similar to that. But what I will tell you is that as that 2 to 8 months, depending on where you are on the timeline of decluttering, and you start building those habits, I will say that those mistakes, those times when we falter, those times when we can't reason with ourselves, the times that we overconsume still become less and less, and we're able to acknowledge them. And instead of feeling shame and guilt, we're able to say, oh, I made a mistake. Next time I'll remember that I have this, or next time I'll remember I don't like that kind of clothing. I'm not going to wear that kind of cut pants, so I'm not going to buy that again. And that shame and guilt doesn't creep in inside of us anymore, because we know we're allowed to make mistakes, but I'm not going around and just mindlessly spending anymore. I've taken control of my life. So retraining your brain is obviously going to be very difficult. You have to retrain all of these things that our society tells us, maybe even our moms and dads tell us, and our family might be making us feel guilty and weird about not taking their stuff or not wanting to go constantly shopping all of the time. And you might get a lot of pushback. I know I got some pushback of my own, but really having some very honest conversations with people, telling them about how you need to change your life, how it's going to impact you uh, financially, emotionally, physically, and help you live to be your best self. Honestly, even now, when I do get some pushback, I know people know that this is how I want to live my life, and they're either going to support it or they're just going to have to go sit quietly because I'm not going to change for somebody else. So they say if you live in a metropolitan area, you see between 50 and 400 ads a day, give or take. I swear I see more than that, especially if I'm on my phone mindlessly scrolling through Instagram. I see just advertisements that people do all of the time. And while I feel like I've been able to train myself where I very rarely will click on anything that is an ad and check it out, I will say that it was very difficult for me in the beginning. And it was another thing that I really had to train myself. And I got off of all social media for around 6 to 8 months. And that really helped me to reset. So if you feel like you are getting on social media a lot, honestly, that is even another problem of us getting on social media all the time and comparing ourselves. But if you're getting on all the time and you are being tempted to buy things on TikTok, which I don't even have TikTok, but I know my sister-in-law will talk about things that I guess there's TikTok shops that you can buy things. If that's a temptation for you, I guarantee you that just stepping away will feel weird for like a week or two. I was always reaching for my phone when I was going through that 6 to 8 months of not having any of that. And I'd reach for my phone and be like, oh, yeah, I don't have this. I'm not getting on. And it was weird just to not have that immediate, like, good feeling of being able to scroll and do something mindless. But once you get off of it, getting back on, I'm so much more aware of the ads I'm seeing, people trying to sell me things. And so it's much easier for me to not fall into that, like just scrolling through Marketplace, looking mindlessly for things that I don't actually need, because I've stepped away and acknowledged that that was a problem for me. And even though I have it again, and I have I have an Instagram if you want to follow it, I do try and only follow people that are going to support this new lifestyle that I am working towards, and I'm able to easily acknowledge the ones that aren't. So, like I said before, remember to remind your inner self, talk to yourself in third person, tell yourself that this is a marathon, but it's a marathon that you are only running against yourself. So, every little step forward, you might have a fall back a couple times, but it doesn't matter because every step forward is going to get you closer to that minimalist, that simple living goal that you want to live, and you want to be in a house where you feel calm and you feel warm and taken care of, and that your home is a place of ease. So if you enjoy learning about minimalism and decluttering, then remember to check out one of these 2 videos right here, because I guarantee that they will help you continuing to build your confidence in this new lifestyle that you want to lead. All right, I will see you guys again very soon.